our power rankings, we've been sitting on this one for a while because Zach came up with this topic because Zach won last time.
It's a great topic.
Doing power rankings of strippers in movies and TV.
Strippers or exotic dancers.
So we're talking, we're talking strippers and exotic dancers in movies and TV. It should be a lot of fun. This is one, I think I'm going to go first on this with my number 5. I haven't gone first on anything yet. So as I was looking at this, there were, I thought this was going to be a really hard list to come up with. And then by the time I was done, I was like, oh man, I can only pick 5 because I had like a good list of ones. I'm like, oh, I got to mention this one. And I had a list of like 10 I really wanted to mention. So honorable mentions is going to be a lot of fun. So number 5 on my list is the titular character played by Taylor Page in Zola.
Nice. No Merlot. Wow.
And
Todd was the
I could Merlot the movie.
Well, yeah, that's the other part of it too. I went with Taylor Page because I think her narration throughout the whole thing is a lot of fun. She's the one that gets recruited in this whole thing, so obviously she's got some talent there. And yeah, I mean, strippers turned into a life of crime. It's a fun movie, and her performance is fun. And like I said, I think the narration is really what sells it for me. I love her narration throughout that. So number 5, Taylor Page as Zola.
It's a great call, and it is a great performance. And but I don't believe she strips at all in the movie.
She does.
Does she? I thought she was just. And she's sort of the straight man in the movie. She observes all the nonsense around her.
All right, we're gonna go Zach next. Zach, number 5.
All right, my number 5 comes from the Tarantino universe. Not the stripper that you might think that I have Adam ranking pretty high, but another stripper that is in a movie that I like a lot more of Tarantino's.
I called this a month ago.
That is Kill Bill Volume 2. We are going with Rocket, played by someone named Laura Coyouette. And, you know, strippers are supposed to be pretty sexy.
Is she the one that plugs the toilet?
She plugs the toilet. There's shitty water coming out of it. Yeah, bud. Shitty water coming out of the toilet again. She's kind of got this like 80s Laura Dern vibe to her a little bit. She's kind of tall and angular with blonde hair. It would have been a great Laura Dern.
She has red hair.
Okay, you're possibly right about that. But listen, okay, anytime that a stripper plugs up the toilet, who are you going to send? You're going to send the bouncer, Bud, to go fix it. Although I don't know if Bud ever actually fixed it because by that point he'd essentially been fired. It's a great performance. And I think in the Kill Bill Volume 3 movie that we get, I think Rocket needs to make an appearance as a stripper who plugs up a toilet. Because I think that's the only time that's ever happened in film history.
Todd, number 5.
All right, my number 5. I've mentioned a lot. I've never actually put it on one of my lists. I'm not entirely sure she's actually a stripper, but I'm going with Mercedes Cortez in Grand Theft Auto Vice City. I mean, because there is the time when you pick her up from Cortez's boat and you drive her to the pole position club, which I assume that she's a stripper, but maybe she's just going to hang out. I'm not really sure. She's definitely a prostitute, but she's a really interesting character that you come across a few times throughout the game, and I think she's a stripper. I could honestly, I've images in my head of her probably stripping, but I can't remember exactly. I kind of go through the cutscenes now when I play that game. So yeah, Mercedes Cortez, my video game pick that isn't number 1.
Oh my God! See why this is a great list.
4, and it's to me, it's a classic, but I think it also really works on several levels. It is Demi Moore as Erin Grant in Striptease. 1, because she freaking rocks in that movie, especially in her stripping scenes. 2, it's kind of similar to Zola. I mean, she's a stripper that ends up getting mixed up into a whole crime ring and has to like work for undercover FBI type stuff. Burt Reynolds is completely ridiculous in that movie, but I think her role actually totally works, and she's pretty awesome in it. And it just became a punchline because everything Demi Moore did in the mid-90s became a punchline. So, number 4 is Striptease. It's a classic. Is
it though? Yeah, I mean, just because it was made 26 years ago, does that make it a classic?
Yeah, when Showgirls pops up as number 1 for you, you're gonna say it's a classic, and I'm gonna
But that
I can
is a
say the
classic.
exact same thing.
They even put out a classic edition
More
of the
people
DVD.
more people know what striptease is than they know what
Where
Showgirls
can you
is.
even find striptease at this point? Do they
I
even
have
have
no
a
idea.
Blu-ray for it?
Zach, number 4.
Okay, my number 4 is a reference that Todd will not get, but hopefully Terry will appreciate it. It is a character from The Office who actually made 3 appearances according to IMDb, but I really only remember her from the Phyllis Bachelorette Party episode when they actually purchase a couple of strippers. And I'm going to make it a tie, actually, because I think both of them are pretty funny. The one I was originally going to go with was Elizabeth the stripper, who actually is a stripper. And when Michael goes to her because he feels guilty that he got a lap dance from her, she says, secrets are no fun. Secrets hurt someone, which is a great kind of way of putting it. The other stripper that I'm tying it with, it's Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin, the stripper.
Oh,
but he
gosh,
wasn't really a stripper. This crashed and burned. I like Elizabeth the stripper, and I like Elizabeth the stripper actually tells Pam that she could strip, which is a very nice compliment. But Bob Vance from Vance Refrigeration says no way, he's not into it. But there's a great exchange when Jim asks Dwight, have you ever seen a stripper before? And Dwight says, yeah, I see them all the time because Jennifer Gardner played one on Alias. And then Jim says, yeah, I've never seen one either. So that's a good line, and that's a great episode. So I'm going with Elizabeth the stripper and Ben Franklin.
My number 4 is a movie I don't know if you guys have seen. It's called It's from Welcome to the Rileys, which is a movie directed by Jake Scott. It is the character of Mallory, played by Kristen Stewart. And because this is a movie that I don't think is necessarily that good, but her performance and her relationship with the James Gandolfini character, who sort of like takes almost like a father-daughter type feel with her, is really interesting. And she does strip in the movie, and I think she actually gives one of the very best performances of 2010. It's one of her best performances as well. It's a movie that I only saw once, but it definitely stuck in my memory. And her character she's a stripper, and she's awesome.
That's kind of the running theme here, right?
Just because you're a stripper doesn't make you awesome.
All right, I'm next. Number 3 on my list is possibly the closest anyone ever got to getting nominated for an Oscar for playing a stripper, and that is Jennifer
Incorrect.
Lopez as Ramona in Hustlers. How is that incorrect? What? Oh, I guess you're right. Yeah. But she almost did. Which is like,
yeah, she
Jennifer
got close,
Lopez.
but didn't. There have been ones that have gotten nominated, but she's the closest one that didn't get nominated.
We'll go with that. It's Jennifer Lopez, and I feel like no one has owned like that role quite like Jennifer Lopez did in Hustlers. And talk about, once again, it's the third one in a row where it's a stripper turned to a life of crime. On my list, there's a theme here of strippers that become criminals. But Jennifer Lopez, Hustlers, it had to be on the list. I mean,
it's the Leo in The Revenant of stripper roles.
Again, if we didn't mention it, there'd be something wrong with our power rankings here. Zach, number 3.
All right, I'm going into the world of children's films for my third pick, which is not a thing you'd expect me to say on a list about strippers, but this had a very strong impact on my youth and my identity, I guess, because I kind of really thought this scene was really great. If we're going with a Disney theme, we're not going to go with the Jungle Book. We're going to go with the female mice strippers in The Great Mouse Detective, because they are strippers in a Disney movie. And I'm looking at the Disney forum, the Great Mouse Detective fandom wiki. One of the characters is named Miss Kitty Mouse, who is a sentient female mouse. I don't know why the sentient seems a little bit unnecessary, but she works at the Rat Trap Pub, which is where Ratigan, I guess, is the big boss, right? I just remember, I haven't seen their musical number in probably 30 years, but I just remember she starts out at like this, like, she's like working for the Salvation Army. She says, dearest friends, we're here to, like ask for money or something. And she rips that thing off and she's like full in burlesque. Hey, fellas, la la la. It's almost like an Ethel Merman number. And it's like really freaking random for a kids movie from the 80s that these female mice are up there ripping off their clothes. I love it. I dug it. I wish Disney had more balls like that. And God bless the 80s. God bless whatever they were on, whether it was cocaine or not. So I'm going with the female mice striptease burlesque show from The Great Mouse Detective, which I think had a lot of impact on many people our age. Not Terry's age, he's too old, but Todd and my generation.
My number 3 is Stefani in Zola. I mean, it's the Riley Keough character. I previously mentioned Zola on my best scenes in A24 movies and on my top 10 of 2021. It's, I don't know, like Zach said, Riley Keough, all of her characters probably become a stripper at some point, and this one actually is a stripper, and she's such a good stripper that she recruits other strippers to go on stripping like trips with them. And she's awesome. She's sort of a sympathetic character in like a really crazy crime plot thing. And yeah, I mean, and you do actually see her strip and stuff, so it is legit. Unlike maybe Taylor Page, although I think she does strip too. But yeah, Stefani.
Like the perfectly iconic Riley Keough role, and it's just outrageous.
Number 2 on my list is Rose McGowan as Cherry Darling in Planet Terror.
Of course.
Nice.
So I'm going to go from strippers getting involved in a life of crime to strippers getting machine guns put on their leg and fighting crime instead. And not fighting crime, more fighting zombies. But yeah, Rose McGowan took this spot. I mean, she's don't call her a stripper. She's a go-go dancer. And the opening of the movie, and she ends her dance with her crying on stage, which is never a good sign.
Yeah, that's a great pick.
Yeah, I had her on my honorable mentions. So yeah.
See, there's so many that just have to be mentioned. All right, number 2, Zach.
All right, my number 2, I'm going with a prop here. It is one of the great movies of the 90s. It's a top.
This is your prop?
I'm going with from the great Adam Goyen Canadian classic Exotica, which even Todd likes. I'm going with Mia Kirshner's performance as Christina, aka Little Chrissy. She is, I mean, this is my series. Well, you'll see what my number 1 pick is, but this is actually the best stripper. Okay. She owns this club. All right. All the other strippers are just doing their own thing. By the way, Exotica, far and away, another sub power ranking we could do best strip clubs. This is obviously the greatest strip club in movie history. It's got this kind of like South American vibe to it. There's like toucans and weird sort of bushes. It almost looks like you're in the movie Jumanji a little bit. There's almost like rock formations that come out. There's also rock formations in Showgirls too, but this is a lot more realistic. And Chrissy is kind of doing this showgirl, this like schoolgirl thing. You know, Eric, the DJ, is obsessed with her, and that's a real storyline in the movie. Eric, the DJ, one of the great movie douches of all time, played by Elias Koteas, and he said, "Little Chrissy, oh yeah, you like that innocence, don't you?" And it's just really annoying. It gets in the way of her show, but she's still an adamant performer. She performs in spite of DJ Eric's relentless commentary. You know, it's like listening to Tony Romo. It's just grating at this point. Anyway, she is involved with this labyrinthine plot in the movie, and she's a great dancer. She performs, get this. Do you remember what song she performs to, Todd? It's one of the all-time great striptease songs that now when I hear this song, I can only think of this movie and her dancing to it. It's Leonard Cohen's Everybody Knows. Everybody Knows. And it's a great song, great Canadian song to use for the greatest Canadian movie of all time. I freaking love this movie, man. You know, 2 years we're going to go up on this thing, and we're going to deep dive Exotica because I got a lot to say about it, and Mia Kirshner is a big reason why, and I love that movie.
Todd, number 2.
All right, and my number 2 is one of the strippers that was nominated for an Oscar or the actor was nominated for an Oscar playing a stripper, and that is Natalie Portman's character Alice Ayers in Closer. I previously mentioned Closer for Best Fictional Doctors. It was a list that we did, apparently. I don't remember doing that.
Dr. Larry.
Yeah, Dr. Larry. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Closer is a movie it's my obsession. I don't know. I've watched that movie a lot. It's in my top 100, which is kind of inexplicable because I don't know anybody else that really loves it like to that extent, other than maybe the Golden Globe voters. But yeah, Natalie Portman's character actually has a relationship with that doctor that we were talking about. Her name's Alice or Jane, I guess, depending on which part of the movie you're watching. But yeah, her stripping is actually really interesting because she wears a pink wig, and it's like a really classy strip club too. Yeah, I don't know. She she's just a really interesting character and nominated for an Oscar, of course. Natalie Portman's maybe her finest hour, or maybe top 3. I don't know.
Number one on my list. I mean, I could have like spread this out a little more, but I didn't, because I'm going back to the world of Robert Rodriguez / Quentin Tarantino, because there was only one answer that could be number one, and that's Salma Hayek as Santanico Pandemonium in From Dusk Till Dawn. I mean, if this is inspired by Magic Mike, why not have the co-star of Magic Mike's Last Dance as the number one? She's got one scene, and then she turns into a zombie. And I mean, that's all you need to know about From Dusk Till Dawn. But that one scene is pretty outstanding, and it's what puts Salma Hayek on the map. It's one of the things that made this movie so memorable. And I mean, Zach, you were asking questions about how much of a turn Harvey Keitel took. He went from being naked in every movie to being a priest watching Salma Hayek strip. That was a comment I was going to give, but I saved it for now.
Wow,
because
that's
it was
beautiful.
my number one.
Well, and it ties it back into the Magic Mike movie, right?
Exactly. So Santanico Pandemonium, which is another great name.
Yeah, I had her
by Salma Hayek
on my honorable mentions, as well as her performance in Dogma, because she's also a stripper in that movie.
Zach, and I would have stuck with it. Okay, well, I think we have a lot of gender bias here. These have all been female strippers. So my number one stripper is actually a man. It's not Magic Mike. I think we can just acknowledge that Magic Mike is the greatest, stripper. It's just boring to say, it's just kind of like saying Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback. We all know it. We don't need to say anything else about it. The greatest stripper of all time, my number one, comes from the world of TV. So I'm a little surprised that Terry didn't think about it. I think it's an oversight on his list, because I think at this point, he's a bigger fan of this show than I am. But when this sketch came out, I think it changed the world.
My thoughts.
Oh.
And with Patrick Swayze doing admirable backup work, the number one stripper of all time has to be Chris Farley in the Chippendales sketch, because, I mean,
you want a piece of my heart?
His moves are amazing.
It's an unbelievable feat of acting. It's something that could not ever be replicated. It's something that has been preserved in our memory and time forever. There's a great article on here from Ranker that talks about different people's reactions to it. Robert Smigel says one of the funniest sketches on the show. So Kevin Nealon said it was the most difficult sketch he ever had to be in without laughing. And Bob Odenkirk apparently wasn't a fan of it. But it's a great sketch.
And Nealon was a complete stone face in that too. Like that was one of the things I was going to say is how in the world did Kevin Nealon, Mike Myers, and Jan Hooks not laugh their asses off throughout that entire thing?
I believe that Chris Farley's name in that sketch was Barney, which makes it even better. And it's just amazing. I mean, he goes pound for pound with Patrick Swayze. It's two of the great, RIP to both of them, two of the great talents of all time in an all-time sketch. I think if you're going to take a single sketch that crystallizes the 90s, what made the 90s SNL great, it's that one. And there's no more that needs to be said. He's the greatest exotic dancer stripper of all time.
He stole the sketch from
Magic
Patrick
Mike
Swayze.
Shame. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And inexplicably
you're right.
not on Terry's
forgot
list.
About that. Yeah, that is a complete
and
omission.
Like I said, it would have been on your list if you had thought of it.
Yep, 100%.
It needed to be mentioned.
Todd,
number one.
It's interesting. I had 7 honorable mentions, and 5 of them were mentioned on other lists, so that's pretty cool. My number one, of course. I mean, you could guess it. I also mentioned the movie on Best Sports Movies. It is Cassidy.
Another one nominated for an Oscar.
Not all girls can ride the pole like that.
Exactly. 90s sucked, apparently. Yeah, Cassidy, or do you remember her actual name? Anybody?
Hot Aunt May.
Pam. Her name was Pam in the movie. Yeah, I don't know, but there is something to be said about a great stripper character that's developed to the point that you actually do know what her actual name is, and it is one of the biggest, warmest hearted performances that you could think of in that, or at least that I could think of, especially for a stripper. And yeah, it's one of those. It's a stripper with the heart of gold or whatever. I don't care. it's a perfect performance in a perfect movie.
See, that's another one I
Yeah.
didn't go with because I knew you were going to go with it.
But then you said that no stripper had been nominated.
I
for an
know,
Oscar.
and then as soon as you said, I was like, oh yeah, Marissa Tomei, and I hadn't even.
And you
both of
forgot
them are
about
on.
you forgot
Both
about
are
Natalie
on my
Portman.
honorable mentions. Both are on my honorable mentions.
That's ridiculous, Terry.
Yeah, I just forgot. But
So
in the moment, I was like, oh well, maybe. I'm like, oh wait, no, I'm an idiot. That's really what's going on here. But
We have Salma Hayek, Marissa Tomei, and Chris Farley.
Chris Farley.
Beautiful. I would go to that strip club. Absolutely. I would bounce for that strip club.
There we go. Well, let's recap this 5-1. Number 5 on my list, Taylor Page from Zola. Number 4, Demi Moore from Striptease. Number 3, Jennifer Lopez from Hustlers. Number 2, Rose McGowan from Planet Terror. Number 1, Selma Hayek from Dusk Till Dawn.
I
Zach.
guess we're going with the actors, not the characters. But okay, I can do that. I got to look up who played Mercedes Cortez.
Well, that's just who I have down. You can go with whatever you want. Go with whatever you want.
I had character names mostly. I went with Rocket in Kill Bill Volume 2. Rocket. Number 4 was
Rocket.
Elizabeth the stripper / Ben Franklin from The Office, which Todd should watch, and maybe he'll get the reference. Number 3, the female mice from The Great Mouse Detective. That was a bust. Someone out there knows what I'm talking about. Number 2, Mia Kirshner as Little Chrissy in Exotica, and she really is the best, but that's okay. And number 1 is Chris Farley as the Chippendales dancer Barney.
He's just auditioning. He never actually becomes one.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know if he gets the job.
No, Patrick Swayze gets the job.
Yeah, it's sad. Tragic ending.
Okay, my number 5 is Fairuza Balk, apparently as Mercedes Cortez in Out of Vice City, which I did not know.
We interrupt this broadcast. Breaking news: Fairuza Balk played that.
Number 4, we have Kristen Stewart as Mallory in Welcome to the Rileys. Number 3, Riley Keough as Stefani in Zola. Number 2, Natalie Portman's Oscar-nominated performance as Alice in Closer. And number 1, Marissa Tomei's Oscar-nominated performance as Cassidy or Pam in The Wrestler.
You're telling me that there was no episode of Boy Meets World where they went to a strip club?
They did. I mean, okay, there was a place that they went to called Clavage. And it wasn't really a strip club. It was more like a Hooters kind of thing. But they do this like booty dance thing. And I don't know. I didn't really consider it a strip club. But there is a scene at the end of that episode where all of the guys it's almost like a striptease for all of the women, because it is a episode about how the men are sort of like having to do guy things, and they do something for the women at the end. I don't know.